All right, good morning. In this final week of February, the videos I recorded this week essentially focused on Atomic Habits, right? A book by James Clear. And in the later chapters, he presents these two ideas of combining your skills to form some sort of niche, right? Some sort of like making you stand out as then like highly specialized. And then the other idea being that boring tasks, one, are required to go essentially from good to great, but there are also a lot of, I guess, opportunity, I think, within those boring activities. And so in the videos I recorded this week, I tried to expand upon those, reflect on what they've meant for me in my career, in my personal life, right? Some of my hobbies and pursuits, but then also in my private life, right? As a father, as a husband, and try to expand upon some of the examples that James offers in his book. So with that, I encourage you to watch the rest of this video, right? It's likely an hour long, or find the smaller ones that I recorded throughout this final week of February. And then afterward, in the end, I offer some final reflections on the week. So enjoy. All right, good morning. It is Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. I'm Anthony, and this is Drive Dive. So, yeah, who am I, right? Again, if you're just tuning in, husband, father, teacher, long drive, trying to make use of the time. And I've been diving into productivity and stumbled upon James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. And so, just really quickly, one of the things I wanted to touch upon was this idea he presents of like the combination of skills, right? When you can combine your skills, you essentially create a new game, and you can be one of the best at that game. So he talks about like how he kind of created his own major in college, and like called biomechanics, a combination of like physics and some other fields where he couldn't necessarily stand out in physics alone, but then by combining some courses, he's more or less playing into his own strengths and interests and only taking the courses that align to those and then doing really well. And he said one of the benefits too is that because he's then the only one sort of playing this game, the only one taking this combination of courses, he's not comparing himself with other people. I guess he also mentioned too, right, as another example, was the guy, I don't know the person's name, wasn't paying attention, but Dilbert, I guess the comic strip, the author of it, similarly, right, like Dilbert was his, made up major or something, where he wasn't the best artist, but he could draw better than most. He wasn't the best writer, or the best, right, he wouldn't be able to perform stand-up comedy, but he could write a decent joke, right? So he was a good enough artist, he was a good enough writer. Combining those skills along with his background in business, he then was able to create this highly successful comic strip. And so I think early on, if you watch some of my early videos, even before I stumbled on this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear, I said something about synergy. And I think this is kind of aligned with that, where like I keep trying to figure out like how can I combine my hobbies, my interests into something that's productive, and really by productive, I think I mean lucrative, right? Like how can I make money just, with my habits, right? My habits, my hobbies, like strength training, or the things that I'm kind of doing by default, right? Like being a dad, right? I mean, how do I make a side hustle out of that, right? Is all the rage these days, or how do I generate passive income, with some of those things? And that's where the idea of like, well, my son and I were talking about like, well, anything you want to do, anything you want to be good at, yeah, you could create a YouTube channel because you just do those things. and set up a camera, right? You do those things and hit the record button. So, why not? And then I guess if there is an interest out there, then people watch those videos and you eventually, can monetize them, whatever, and, go from there. So I guess that's kind of what it is, right? Is that synergy, or creating your own major, or the synthesis of skill. What is it that you can do well enough that then the combination of those things allows you to truly stand out. I don't know, I'll put my educator hat on for a second. That's where I often try to tell my students, whatever field you want to go into, if you're good at math, you'll be that much better at that field, or you'll stand out that much more within that field. I think I tell my students the same thing about computer science, right? As a skill, even if you're going into finance and things, but you have some knowledge of computer science, throw in specific knowledge, mathematics knowledge of statistics. You'll just, you'll have those marketable skills and stand out so much more in that field. And so, but the whole YouTube thing, right? I mean, some of this stuff is so saturated, right? I was talking with a buddy who, he's like, well, if you're making videos where you're playing Fortnite, he's like, there are plenty of those people. Like, it's already kind of been done. Like, so I wonder if you can do it in such a unique way, that you would stand out, right? Can you do it well enough in a different way, combine a certain skill along with your ability to play Fortnite decently, to then have your videos stand out? Me driving, talking about productivity, is there a way to make my videos stand out? Or I can't imagine I'm making a video where I'm talking about productivity and educating kids and working out and playing trading cards and trading card games and talking about kids. And so it's like, again, how do you combine these skills? What sort of skills am I overlooking, not considering? And so I don't know, I challenge you to do the same thing. Think about yourself, think about what you're good at. What are you doing in your as your career, in your field? What skill sets are not being brought to the table, are not being fully utilized, that you could really then capitalize on and either set yourself apart, within your current field, or maybe jump into a new one, create a whole new thing for yourself. I don't know. So yeah, take that time, comment down below, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'd appreciate it. It also reminds me, oddly enough, right? I saw Tracy Morgan perform this past weekend, and while you may not appreciate his humor, and I was kind of taken back by what he spoke about. I really didn't know what to expect going into it, but he had a couple moments where he just kind of leveled with you, and he said something to the effect of, he was like, "I'm Tracy Morgan. You're not getting this anywhere else in the world, right? If you want this, you got to come to me." Right? And that was like just his whole thing, was that, he's going to be himself, he's going to be authentic, he's going to be genuine. And if you like that product, you can't get it anywhere else. So it's the same sort of idea, right? That Dilbert comic strip, his illustrations, his combination of illustrations and joke telling on the subject of business and the world of business and what goes on in the office and things like that. You can't get that anywhere else but then to follow his comic strip. So what is it that you can't get anywhere else but to come to me in some fashion, right? To tune into my YouTube channel, to, if I ever made, some sort of online course, right? What is it that you could not get anywhere else but from me? So what is it that I couldn't get anywhere else but from you, right? Those are some of the things to try to think about, I guess, that I'm talking about here today, inspired in part by Tracy Morgan, and in part by just this morning listening to James Clear's book Atomic Habits. So with that, I'm about 8 minutes in. That's usually what I do. Try to record around 10-minute video, give or take a couple minutes, and then come the end of the week, compile them into one and post that. So I don't know, I appreciate you watching, listening to my morning rant while I drive. And have a great Tuesday, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Take care. Good morning. It is Wednesday, February 26th, 2025. I'm Anthony, and this is Drive Dive. So, real quick, I hope you will watch this whole video. I just want to share quickly that I'm going to dive into James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, and part of what he describes separating the great from the good is doing the boring things consistently. He talks about an example with athletics and his own experience as a baseball player. I'll elaborate a little bit on that, what it means to me in terms of my career, my athletic endeavors, fitness endeavors, and even my relationships. I think it's important to really talk about some of the boring things and how doing them can make you great in those particular areas. So, right, a bit about me, right? Husband, father, teacher, have an hour-long drive, try to record these videos to make that hour-long drive less boring, right? So I think it kind of hits home or proves the point on that one. Just, right, I'm doing this boring thing every day, but I'm also making the most of it by recording these videos, creating this content, helping myself from sort of a therapeutic lens, and then I hope helping motivate and inspire you as well. So, as I said, James Clear, he talks about his experience as a former baseball player, and then at some point talking with a trainer or coach of some kind who'd worked with world-class athletes and things. And James posed the question to that trainer, like, what in your mind, in your experience, really separates the absolute best world class from everyone else. And that coach had said it's just the ability to do the boring over and over. And I think that's sort of what James talks about is we've sort of been disillusioned, right? We have this false belief that says those who are great, right, in any walk of life, the greatest of the great, have some sort of like undying passion or no lack of energy and all this other stuff. And it's really just that they embrace the grind, as the saying goes, that they do the boring things, all the little things, with consistency, and just get all the little things that need to get done in order to really continue making progress after the initial novelty, excitement, buzz have kind of worn off, that they're able to continue in the face of hardship and adversity and maybe not immediate payoff, right? They're able to just persevere and continue doing those little things, the daily routines, and finish the mission or whatever it is. So for me, right, in my career, I think as an educator, really thinking about what makes education so tough is that there is a lot of that boring. You go into education, you're right, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and thinking about the difference that you're going to make, and right, I really love this subject matter. I'm going to bring this energy. I'm going to bring this passion, and I'm going to really reach a lot of kids. And listen, while you do that over time, right, and I can share, like some of my favorite moments throughout my adult life have been connecting with former students on platforms like LinkedIn and Facebook, and were there thanking me for having such an impact on their life. Thinking of one student in particular, Kayla, who has gone on to gain her master's in engineering. Forgive me for not knowing specifically which field or branch within engineering, but has reached out on a couple of occasions to thank me and celebrate me as an educator, and that's been awesome, right? I've run into students who themselves became mathematics educators, and to be able to say hi and, oh wow, that's awesome, and just know that in some small way, at least in some small way, I did encourage and motivate and contribute to their overall success, and that feels good, right? I mean, that's what I guess what we say would sustain you and keep you motivated, keep you going. But the boring in between, right, is is the lesson planning and the grading and all the emails and parent-teacher conferences and back-to-school nights, right? There's a lot of these, late night activities that you have to prepare for, and that can be very boring. The lesson planning is such a chore. And that's why I think there's a lot of buzz right now around AI and how can you use AI to, tackle some of these, boring and mundane tasks, right? The grading, lots of platforms offer automated grading, right? That's the appeal of these products and things and technologies, right? Is to eliminate some of that boredom from the field. But that's really, I think, what, if you're willing to do the boring, can separate you, as a great educator, right? I mean, we have to, I think, take some more advanced coursework. I think, right, engage in professional development, do some research to create different activities, right? The activity's fun. The activity is the fun part, right? And seeing kids engage with the content, actually talk to one another, right? If you can get them out of their seats, things like that are fun. But the boring is the finding those activities, creating those activities, preparing for those activities. All of those things can be very, very boring. They can be chores. They can be, I don't know, right? Just a bit much at times, and take away from the joy of teaching. But in order to get to that joy, to those fun-filled activities, engaging activities, we have to do the boring. Extending on, I guess, James is a brief discussion about athletics and being a better athlete through embracing some of these boring activities. I'll share with you all that over the past roughly 2.5 years, I have lost 50 pounds. Thank you. It's been a thing for me where, just in my, I was a high school athlete. I dabbled a little bit in college athletics, and once college was over and I needed a goal, I started to get into like natural bodybuilding and working with coaches and trying to get lean and whatnot. And the first go around, I was probably like, I don't know, I would hope just shy of maybe like 200 pounds or something like that. And the first coach I worked with, a guy by the name of Phil Satilli, I think we just took like a crash diet approach. It was like, here's the date, let's just lose as much weight as we possibly can. And he gave me like a bare bones diet, just like all protein and vegetables, very, very little carbohydrate. We basically did like 2 hours of cardio a day. I pretty much went to the gym like every single day for an hour in the morning to just do cardio in a fasted state, right? And then in the afternoon, I'd go back and hit the weights he was like, just hit the weights for a half hour, like don't stop moving, engage various muscle groups, half hour, and then go do another hour of cardio. And I did manage to get down to somewhere like 160, 165 and compete in my first ever, bodybuilding competition. And then, of course, afterward, I'm like, it took, I don't know, it was a couple months. It was maybe 2.5, 3 months where I managed to lose, I don't know, somewhere between, it couldn't have been that much weight. I don't know, memory fails here, 25, 30 pounds, something like that. It sounds gross to do in such a short span of time. But like I said, bare bones, high protein and like vegetable laden diet, very little carb, tons of cardio, just to get that deficit, caloric deficit going. But then you're right. So that was like my mid 20s. I'm 40 now. My weight had kind of just been as low as, like I said, somewhere in that 160, 165 range, and then all the way up to, the 200s, the 215 was sort of, was the highest. But then getting into my career, starting a family, and it was like shortly before my daughter was born, right? August of 2022. She's born in October. And my wife and I had gone on a bit of a baby moon, right? Anniversary vacation. And I start looking around. I'm like, man, like there are some dudes here who are in pretty good shape, right? I mean, some younger, so understandably, right, don't have the commitments and things like that, and able to hit the gym like I was. So okay, fine. But a couple of older dudes too, where it was like very clear that they had families. No, I wonder if that guy's a runner, sort of thing, And I'm like, I got to do better. I can be in better shape. And so, another coach I'd worked with prior, Joe Franco, and I thought had some success with, and had gotten down to, I think, a healthier weight range, and looked a little fuller, a little better. Took a bit more measured, I guess, of an approach. And I think at one point, I think he had me down to probably somewhere like the 170s. I needed to be leaner in order to do well in that particular competition, but I think it was just a healthier approach. So I reached out to him, and we got working together again. He helps me with the diet, mostly just the macros, and I have to pick out the foods and everything. But essentially, over the past 2.5 years, losing 50 pounds, I eat the same thing every day at the same time. That's pretty much my very, very, very boring approach. And it works for me. I love it. I enjoy it. I'd rather not have to think about, what I'm going to do for lunch, what I'm going to do for dinner, and just eat the same thing every day. I love it. I think periodically, based on my progress and things, Joe and I would make some tweaks, right? Trying to reduce the number of grams of fat in my diet. I might shift from like a 2% milk down to skim milk, or go from the 5% fat Greek yogurt down to the 2%, down to the 0%. Instead of 3/4 of a cup, go down slightly to 2/3 cup of corn checks. Right, is one of the foods that I enjoy eating, and good source of carbohydrate, in my opinion, that works for me. So, like, I can tell you, that I've done it again for so long that right now I'm eating for breakfast 3/4 cup of oatmeal with some salt and some cinnamon. I don't measure those things, but 3/4 cup of oatmeal, 8 ounces of milk with a scoop of protein, and about a tablespoon of peanut butter. I mean, I can get a little liberal with the peanut butter sometimes, but that's my breakfast. Lunch is a can of tuna fish, the albacore tuna, a 1/3 cup of rice. I toss in some leafy greens. I don't really measure it, but whether it's, romaine lettuce, or I love arugula. What else? 3/4 cup of cereal, usually Corn Chex. I dig that stuff. 4 or 5 prunes. And that's it. I do eat, chew through about 3/4 cup of sunflower seeds a day. Keep my fats up. It was like a 1/4 cup of cashew, but I like the sunflower seed. Dinner is 4.5 ounces of chicken, some vegetables, like I said, some leafy greens, and I have 2/3 of a cup of Fiber One. Then later on, bedtime, it's oh my goodness, what is it? I don't know. It's egg whites. I can't tell you how much. You get the whole quart, and I think that's like 4 servings for me. So, so some egg whites, another 1/3 cup of rice, an apple, and then right now it's 0% Greek yogurt from Faye. Whatever that container is, the big one, a 1/5 of that basically, and then another tablespoon of peanut butter. So, I mean, that's what I eat every single day. It drives people nuts, right? As a little segue, it drives my wife insane. It's just not her cup of tea, right? And it's, dinner, she's like, I can't eat chicken all the time, right? So it does drive her nuts, and I don't blame anybody for it. James Clear, I think, makes it clear that, it's just not something that a lot of people want to do, right? Boring every single day. But I love it. I love the training, right? I keep a notebook. I write down all the exercises, the reps, the weights, and documenting it. It's pretty boring. Joe asks me to fill out a spreadsheet every week, which I'm not very good about doing. But, no, come on, man. Like, I'm doing it. But yeah, he wants me to write down he wants me to keep track of how much sleep I get every night, how many steps I take in a day, really, really write down, paying attention to those macros, like I said, and just for simplicity's sake, I eat the same thing every day. Keep track of those macros, how many steps, track my body weight, and report that on a weekly basis. And then every other week, send them some progress photos. And it's like, right, all of that, I'm sure sounds incredibly boring, but I love it. I love it, and I think that's why I have done well, in that domain, right? That part of my life, this fitness regimen and being able to lose, like I said, 50 pounds in about 2.5 years. Maybe some people could do it faster. I don't know, but this was just, a steady, measured, and I think ultimately a very healthy approach to it. But then I've been thinking a lot about the relationship that I have with my wife, right? The relationship she and I have, and I realized that, right, in therapy, talking with my therapist about different things that irk me and whatnot, and I realized that, I think, right, like when you first start dating someone, everything's so fun, it's so new, it's so exciting, but now we are here later, right, with the kids and the laundry and the dishes and the floors and the cutting the grass and right, it's like there's just so much boring, right? I mean, there's a word for it now. It's adulting, right? And so it drives people crazy. It's been driving us nuts, and I think really driving us apart in a lot of ways. And the specific example I can say is like just the small talk and the daily. How was your day? How was your morning? Right? And I'm sorry. I hope my wife doesn't hear this, but it's like we're driving once, and she's talking about like a farm and some kind of like outdoor covered area that was like wrapped in plastic, and I just remember thinking at the time, like who cares? Like what is this? Like, and reflecting on it now after hearing this part of James Clear's book about the boring, it's like like in my mind that was like as boring as a conversation with my wife could get, and I was freaking out on the inside. But thinking about it now, like you need to want the boring, and you need to engage in the boring, and it's the idea of, right, I have this goal, right? I had, and I still have, right, but I had the goal of getting into better shape, but I still want to get into even better shape. And so, right, with that goal, it was really easy for me to adopt that very boring. Oh man, there's so much more to talk about. But those are things, right? So James also talks about like your DNA, and just certain goals, certain habits, hobbies, routines are easier to pick up than others, right? Based on from one individual to another. Certain things you're just more inclined to do. They're easier for you. They're easier to pick up. And so for me, the training and the dieting, right? Very, very, very easy for me to adopt and follow, that script, that routine, that daily, very boring grind. The relationship aspect of things, for various reasons, maybe I will put out some video content related to myself and my upbringing and some of the issues that I had as a child and how they're impacting my relationships now as an adult. I'm starting to realize, right, is then the harder things for me to pick up, have been throughout my entire life, I think, relationship building. It's just so true, this, right, engaging in small talk, etc. But I think I'm reminding myself now, as I'm recording, that I have this goal of having a positive, productive, meaningful, healthy relationship with my wife. And it's going to be boring. It's going to be boring. But I have to embrace that, and we have to talk about these things that seemingly don't matter, but they do matter, right? This practice of engaging in the boring small talk and whatever. does actually strengthen the relationship, right? Separating the great from the good. You want a great relationship, like that's part of a great relationship. A long-lasting, healthy relationship is having those small conversations. And so I think that's it, right? I've been talking for about 20 minutes here. I hope I've helped. I hope you've stuck with me about some of these, specific examples, all right, from just this one quick idea in a late chapter of James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, talking about these very boring activities and how the great separate themselves by just doing the boring, and then my specific examples of how that applies in my career, how that applies in my personal pursuits, very personal fitness pursuits, and how that also applies in my relationship with my wife. So please take some time, comment down below your thoughts and how embracing the boring, doing the boring, might apply in your life, some of your goals. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you catch me on the next one, likely tomorrow. But yeah, with that, have a wonderful day, and yeah, see you in the morning. All right, good morning. Today is Thursday, February 27th, 2025. I'm Anthony. This is Drive Dive. So I appreciate being here with me, right? I'm a dad, a husband, a teacher, play TCG games, etc. But lately I've been hooked on productivity and ways to be more productive. And right, this long drive I have in the morning is major time suck and making me feel very, very anxious and angry and bitter and lots of negativity. So started creating these YouTube videos to try to feel more productive, and whether it was listening to audiobooks too was something I was trying to do on my drive. And so putting all that stuff together is this YouTube channel here. So the topic today, right, I'm continuing to reflect on James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, and in one of the later chapters he talks about this idea of I'm paraphrasing, calling it like embracing the boring, right? A lot of times we're talking about embracing the grind. Well, the grind is boring. And in order to, go from good to great, you have to be able to do a lot of the boring. And he has some salient points in his book where he talks about, just personal preferences, personal traits and whatnot. We are more inclined to do some boring tasks, more so than others. Right? I think I disclosed personally yesterday that things like eating the same thing every day, things like training in the gym, right? Those are things that I enjoy doing. But a lot of the boring I consider like networking and small talk and, how was your day? And, oh, did you ever notice? And have you watched this show? Like a lot of those things I just find very boring because they're not productive, because they're not in support of my goals, right? Which again, I'm more inclined to value certain goals than others, whereas, you might think my goals are garbage and whatever, right? So there's a lot that I think that needs to be reflected upon there. But so in my role as an educator, though, is what I want to try to get into. I'll touch upon a little bit my role as an educator, a little bit more how this idea of embracing the boring impacts my personal life. And then at the very end, I'll get into some sort of educational leadership type stuff, reflecting on my career and the state of education, for a minute there. But anyway, where am I, right? So talking with my kids yesterday about this idea, talking about my kids yesterday in the classroom about embracing the boring, I'm realizing I've been talking with them as a high school math teacher about the importance of showing their work, about things like completing homework, about studying, and you realize that I think we have this goal. I say all this stuff and I go, well, assuming you have the goal of doing well, in school, the goal of doing well in this math class, you might be more inclined to do, X, Y, or Z. Whether you want to get an A, get a B, whatever the goal is, for yourself in this class, unfortunately, there's a lot of boring stuff that you need to do in order to attain that goal. And yeah, it's not as exciting as when we do use the calculator, right? It's not as exciting as picking up the calculator, punching some buttons in, getting an answer, and finding out that you got the correct answer, right? That's sort of the exciting part. the boring part is showing all of your work, going through all of the steps, and maybe it's drawing a picture and labeling the picture and figuring out which mathematical relationship, aka rule, aka equation, formula I need to use in this instance, right? That's not very exciting. Showing all of your work, explaining your thinking isn't exciting. But if you really want to be good, great even, at mathematics and get an A in this class, unfortunately those are some of the boring things you just need to do. In yesterday's video, I said there's this word out there for all the boring stuff that we have to do as caregivers or whatnot, and it's called adulting, right? And thinking about, my goodness, right? No one loves washing the dishes, I don't think anybody loves doing the laundry or cutting the grass, or right? There's so many of these tasks and chores that are boring, but you have to do these things. I know I've been struggling, my wife and I have been struggling for a couple of years now, really since our daughter's been born, our second child, where we're both kind of spread thin and almost living like parallel lives and just parenting, right? It's like we're taking care of the kids and we're hardly taking care of ourselves, right? Me taking care of myself, her taking care of herself, let alone us taking care of each other in our relationship, because of the kids, because of all of the chores, the adulting that goes on, and maybe not always taking the time to even just talk about the week and what's happening and who's doing what when, right? That's like a very boring task, but right, well, you didn't put this in our shared calendar. Well, you didn't put that in the shared calendar, right? But like, you have to do those things, I believe, and I'm starting to realize, because as you do those things, you then start to see, oh, hey, you know what? There is this opportunity there that we've been missing. It's been staring at us the whole time. Where we could spend some time together, where we could work on our relationship. I know in earlier videos I talked about just in terms of routines, right? Earlier sections of James Clear's book, where he talks about your systems and your routines and trying to establish those, right? Like making sure that my wife and I are saying good morning to each other, and maybe more than just saying good morning, but habit stacking. And after I say good morning, I'm going to give her a hug. I'm going to give her a kiss, right? We're going to share just those little moments, right? Sometimes when, I might already be home, on the couch or something with my daughter watching Blue's Clues. My wife comes in. Well, okay, like, hey, babe, what's going on? Well, in addition to, right, when I say, hey, babe, what's going on? I'm going to turn to my daughter and say, hey, daddy will be right back. He's got to go say hi to mommy, right? Get up and again have that routine where I'm going for the hug, going for the kiss, right? So doing things like that. But in addition, as I said, while we're going over calendars and things like that, we're starting to realize, like, hey, like, why don't we stay up late on Saturdays? Why don't we make it a point, for the two of us to, after the kids go to bed, just stay up for the extra hour or two, and spend that time alone together. Whether that's right watching a movie, more talking, or we've been talking about some right, just general conversation stuff, but we've been talking about like maybe a couple of different projects that we could be working together on, some other content creation and such, and recognizing that there are those opportunities, like I said, Saturday nights, right? Why haven't we talked about it? We said, well, we could do Friday nights, we could do Saturday nights. We've settled on Saturday as plan A and maybe Friday as plan B, depending on what that weekend looks like. But we don't know what that weekend looks like unless we do that boring chore of, syncing our calendars, right? So, look for those opportunities, I think, to do the boring. And I really do think that you almost need to, whatever endeavor you're about to embark on, or whatever your current goals and projects are, take a moment and think about, when you make sometimes you make like a pros and cons list or something. Let's try to maybe make a list of the exciting tasks and the boring tasks, and really take a hard look at those boring tasks. One, I think you have to ask yourself, am I going to be able to do these things? Am I going to have that will, the desire? But also to position those boring tasks as those hidden opportunities, right? What are the benefits or potential benefits of engaging in those boring tasks? Like I said, managing a calendar is not the sexiest thing to do. It just isn't, right? And then sharing it with a partner or members of your team, right? Might not feel like, an important thing to do. Having a shared calendar might not feel like an important thing to do, but, talk, right? Have that conversation with yourself, but also, the thought partners in your life, whether that's a spouse at home or, partners and team leaders and, bosses, directors, whomever at work, your, secretaries and assistants, etc. About some of the boring tasks involved in a particular project or general, workplace routines, and talk about some of the potential benefits. What makes them difficult, but then, right, these boring tasks, what makes them so difficult, but then, what are some of the hidden benefits or potential benefits that might be realized by engaging in them. And now, I guess I'd like to get into, like I said, reflecting on this idea of boring and education. And if you're not familiar, there is often talked about, I think more so nowadays than prior years, is the teacher shortage. There's just, I don't know, there just aren't a lot of people entering the field, and even my students have caught on to it, where they ask me if I teach Algebra 2, right? They're my current geometry students. They'll be taking Algebra 2 next year. They're like, do you teach Algebra 2? I guess they're interested in spending more time with me. But I said, well, right now, no, but I honestly don't know what happens next year, because we do have a couple of teachers in the department who will be retiring at the end of this year. And one of my students said, math teachers, they're the hardest to find. So even she knows, and there's some history in my district, Spotswood, where there's been one position that they've just had kind of a revolving door. And I've had students who've said, oh yeah, like my sophomore year I had two different teachers. My junior year I had two different teachers, right? They just, and it impacts them, right? I mean, that continuity is so important. Even if you're not in education, I think you might, hear about it in sports, right? Like if the coaching carousel and, inconsistent GMs and all this other stuff, and how they can negatively impact a franchise. Well, imagine that for a kid who's trying to, learn mathematics, right? Which isn't the easiest thing in the world to do. So, they've picked up on that, but I think it's not just math. I mean, it's world language, it's computer science, it's ed tech, right? Like if your school's got a woodshop program, that those teachers go, like, good luck finding any candidates at all, let alone, right, a quality one, that can really drive programs and keep kids engaged, right? So it's very challenging in education to find qualified individuals who are also then energetic and passionate and etc., connect well with kids, all that stuff. But like, why is that? And I right there, a lot of people, I don't know, I hate to say it, but it's like, I'll say hello to some of the adults in the building, how's it going? And they're like, oh, well, I'm here, so, and just not a lot of optimism, I'm like, well, come on, it can't be that bad. And a guy honestly says, like, yeah, some days aren't as bad as others, right? Or this, it's just like, what? You mean some days are better than others? Like, I'd never heard anyone say, like, now this one's not as bad as the others. Like, what? So not as bad, but still bad, right? I don't know. So, but I think there's a lot of boring in education, and I can't compare it to any other field. I really can't. But you get into education because you want to have this impact, right? You want to right, make a difference in kids' lives. You want to be that passionate educator, and like, I'm going to teach them the right way, and I'm going to reach more kids, and help them understand things the way that I understand them, whether that's subject matter or the world, right? Like, I have so much knowledge to give and passion to bring, and ideas and all this other stuff, or maybe you want to get involved in coaching or club advising, right? Some people do it because they love drama, and right, they want to teach theater and all of that, right? It's okay, great, like, but then I think once you get into it, there are a lot of daily chores, and they can be very boring, right? Thinking about things like lesson planning and grading papers, and some of the phone calls and other communication, right? Email, and you do a lot of photocopying, and there's a lot of that, right? You're just updating grades and you're reporting grades, right? There's just so much, I think, that goes into it. Professional development that can be very boring and a major turnoff, I think, for a lot of people. I do my schedule is I have 5 classes. Each one is about 40 minutes, and I mean each one of those 40-minute periods they're not always the most exciting. They're not always the most appealing, right? For me, I'm teaching the content. I know I'm right. I'm interacting with kids and exchanging some jokes and things like that. But every now and then, you're getting those classes where, you're just kind of like, guys, like, where are we? Like, what are we doing, right? Or you do end up with a child that requires so much of your attention for not so great reasons, whether their behavior or their work ethic, right? Like, just isn't quite there, and you're spending a lot of time, I guess, managing behaviors and trying to motivate kids, and it doesn't always feel so rewarding. It's not very exciting, right? It can feel very boring. And so I think as leaders in education, we kind of have to recognize those things and see them one as challenges, I think, right? Recognizing those as perhaps the reasons why some teachers are maybe looking elsewhere, whether different fields or entirely, or different districts, and trying to see what we can do to lighten the load, overall, but also to, I think, those boring tasks maybe make them a little less cumbersome, or help folks realize the importance of them, and, like I said before, the benefits of engaging in some of those boring tasks. So I don't know. You're right. It's difficult, but I imagine, in other walks of life, and I would love for people, if you're watching this long, 17 minutes in, I very much appreciate it. Comment down below. Like I said, I don't know anything about other professions, what makes them appealing or not so much. What are some of the exciting activities you engage in, and then what are some of the boring ones? What do you find enjoyable about some of these boring tasks, right? Other people might say they're boring, but you might enjoy them. I don't know, data entry, face level, sounds really boring. But I know that I somehow enjoy those things. My line of work, curriculum writing, there's a lot of editing and wordsmithing and table formatting and things like that within a Word document. It drives some people nuts, working at page breaks and things like that. I kind of enjoy those tasks. So I wondered if you could comment down below some things like that, help people out there, understand some things about your profession. That's this whole like work from home phenomenon too, where it's not really a phenomenon nowadays, but when people are sharing photos of themselves, working on their laptop on a beach somewhere, it's like, yeah, okay, those boring tasks, but change of scenery, like, wow, that's pretty exciting, and I could totally go for something like that. But that's not every profession, right? So, enlighten us. But I guess that's it for me. Like I said, embracing the boring. I mean, there are aspects of it in, your hobbies and your passions, side hustles. There are certainly aspects of that within our professional lives, within our home lives. And I'd like you, if you could comment down below and, share some thoughts on those different things. I'd appreciate it. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. We'll catch you on the next one. Guess I've run a little long the past couple days, but yeah, that's it. Tomorrow's Friday. I'll share, a couple of reflections, I think, on the week, some final reflections, and we'll see what next week brings. But yeah, have a great night, and I will see you tomorrow morning. Take care. All right, it is Friday, February 28th, 2025. I'm Anthony, and this is Drive Dive. So, to wrap up the week, the focus here was on, I was inspired by James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, the 2 ideas in the later chapters about skill combinations and engaging in boring activities. And as some final reflections, there's a ton of stuff that I dabble in, right? Again, as a husband, a father, consider myself an athlete, right? And I write Amazon product reviews and maybe trying to sell some products. There's so much that I do, TCG gaming and stuff. So what are some skills, right? I teach high school math that I possess that I could combine and create some sort of niche, right? And as a final reflection, I'm thinking of the really bizarre stuff, not the examples that James Clear offers. Was the Dilbert author who found himself as, a better than most illustrator, a better than most storyteller, and for the trifecta, had this background knowledge and experience in the business world. He's able to put all those things together to create this comic strip, Dilbert, right? It may have seemed crazy at the time, but it was something that caught on. He talks about his own experience, maybe not being able to stand out in the field of physics or the field of biology, but creating his own major in college, biomechanics. I'm not going to pretend to know the specifics of that and exactly what you do with that major and things. And what did James do with it? I don't know. He's an author, as far as I know. But I'm even thinking of maybe some of the more bizarre things, right? Trying to reflect a little bit on my own skills or how I'm, right? What are the areas in which I'm better than most that I could then combine into something that makes me then appear to be better than everybody, right? And stand out among the pack. So a really bizarre example in real life I had was, if you recall, years ago there was the Naked Cowboy, right? Which sounds really bizarre. If you're looking for productivity, I don't think that's exactly what you had in mind. But I mean, that was a guy who I guess was in really good shape. I don't remember seeing too many pictures. And I assume he knew how to play the guitar really well. And so what did he do? He kind of he hung out in New York City. Maybe that's a trifecta, right? He just lived in a highly, populated area or had access to that area, that, busy section of the city. And he would literally stand outside in his underwear with his guitar covering his front so that he appeared naked. He'd wear a cowboy hat, maybe some sunglasses, and just play the guitar. Like that was a thing. Like a guy made a thing of that, right? That trifecta of being in shape, being able to play an instrument, and living in that area of New York where he could have that exposure. So the only reason that thing jumped out at me was I'm thinking of myself as being, I pride myself as, right, having lost 50 pounds recently and being in pretty good shape. It's like, what am I trying to do with this, right? Like I don't think I'm trying to jump into any kind of modeling career. I don't think. I mean, I'm open to the idea, but I don't think I could just jump into that and completely away from my teaching career and make a living and support my family, right? So something would have to be kind of like, I don't know, a side hustle or something, right? But if I were really going to make a career of it and really try to monetize it, I think I need to explore it. Like there needs to be something else. There needs to be, again, some combination of skills. So I'm going to brainstorm on that one. And the other is just the idea of engaging in boring activities and realizing that, as James points out, there are just certain types of activities that we as individuals are more inclined to do than others. And so for me, some of the boring activities some people might find boring, right, are in my athletic pursuits, right? And getting the workouts in and performing a lot of the same lifts, week in, week out. I shared I eat the same thing every day, right? The food prep, a lot of that just sounds really boring, but I love it. I love it. Now, some of the other stuff that's pretty boring in the hobbies and in my pursuits are, I think, this YouTube channel management hobby, right? Hitting record while I'm driving, I think that's the easy part. That's probably the fun part, the exciting part, where I get to share my thoughts, and again, hopefully empower, inspire, motivate you. There's also some therapeutic benefits for me. Like, that's the fun, that's the exciting. The boring, right? If you're really trying to make a thing of this and go from good to great, well, that's the editing, as some people have suggested. That's the thumbnail creation. That's writing descriptions for each of the videos. And so that's some of the boring. Promoting maybe on social media channels, right? Through whether it's Facebook or X or Instagram, what have you. Promoting the channel, right? It's just another step in the process. And for me, I don't know if it's not enjoyable, right? But I would say that probably goes in the boring category, where I would really need to further reflect on some of what James teaches in his book and highlights is I have to engage in some more habit stacking and routine building in order to fit some of those things in. Or if I can't do it, either don't, or I've got to pursue other means. Try to find somebody who is inclined to do those boring things for me, and maybe pay them, figure some of that stuff out on Fiverr or something to that effect. Anyway, but I think those are all my reflections. Not to get too long, I'm sure if you're watching this as part of the longer video, it's gone on long enough. But give us some thoughts down below. Take that 30 to 60 seconds. Share some of your thoughts on either what I've shared this week or how you are thinking of combining some of your skills, how you have combined some of your skills in the past, different ways that you engage in boring activities. Again, whether you're personal, professional, private, or you sort of inter relationship communications and things. So I don't know, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you catch me on the next one, which should be Monday. I'll look into some different content, try to find some audiobooks out there that will motivate and inspire the next clip. That's another thing, if you wouldn't mind commenting down below. If you have read James Clear's Atomic Habits, what else do you recommend? Would you like to hear my thoughts on? And I can try to pick up that audiobook and get to it. So yeah, with that, happy Friday. Have a great weekend. Catch you on Monday.